Hello everyone, welcome to today's video where I'm going to be sharing with you my top 7 mini eyeshadow palettes. Last week I uploaded a video where I spoke about some of my current favorite beauty products, or actually it was new makeup releases that I fell in love with instantly. And if you happen to have missed that video, of course I will have it linked down below in the description box for you to check out. And in that video, I reminded myself that it was time for me to do an updated top mini eyeshadow palettes. In that video, I spoke about my love for this new Too Faced Born This Way Cold Smolder Nudes palette. I'm not wearing it right now. I'm wearing a combination of 2 of the other palettes I'll be showing you today, but I am wearing this palette in that video. And I also have the Warm Embers, I think it's called. When I sat down and really thought about my top 7, it didn't quite make the cut, but this one did. Now, before I go any further in telling you why I like this palette so much and the 6 others I have in this video, I want to tell you why I personally prefer a mini palette. I just find mini palettes so much more user-friendly and so much less intimidating. Yes, I was a makeup artist for more than 20 years. I do know how to work with colors, what colors to put together, and because I do have that artist mindset, I'm not really afraid of experimentation. And let's be honest, most of you that clicked on this video are probably not wizards with makeup, although I'm sure some of you are, whether it was an innate talent or perhaps you just learned through watching YouTube videos like mine. But even so, I have a feeling that, like me, you have looked at one of those large eyeshadow palettes and thought, where do I start? So I truly think that the intimidation factor is a big reason why a lot of people stay away from larger palettes. For me, 6 to 9 shades is ideal for a mini palette, although I do have one quad to show you in this video. And I just opened the next palette I was going to show you, and one of the eyeshadows just completely fell out onto my dress. And it's a brand new dress too. Now I'm sitting here wondering if I should even show you this palette. I'm still going to, because I think that the reason why mine fell apart is because I've had it for a really, really long time. So I am still going to recommend the Anastasia Beverly Hills Soft Glam 2 mini palette. And ironically, one of the things I was going to say, or am going to say, that I really like about this palette is how soft and buttery the eyeshadows are. And they might be almost too soft and buttery. I honestly think that may be one of the reasons why it did break. But I don't want this to deter you if you have been looking to buy a new mini eyeshadow palette, or maybe you've had your eye on this one in particular. I would still recommend it, hence why I'm keeping it in the video. And this is actually the palette that I am wearing today. I used tempera underneath my brow. I used a combination of incense and orange soda through my crease. I used a little bit of mulberry on the outer corners, and then I did my eyeliner with Noir. On my lid, I put Dreamer, and then I put a little bit of shimmer from my next favorite on top. This shade right here from the YSL Couture Mini Clutch palette in number 200. I believe these YSL Mini Clutch palettes come in 4 colorways. I have 2 of them, and once again I had to decide which one made my top 7. And I chose 200 because, number 1, this shimmer is just so buttery and out of this world, sparkly and beautiful, even for more mature lids. If you are new to my channel, maybe this is one of the first videos of mine or the first video of mine you've ever seen. I am going to be 51 in a couple of days. I also have hooded eyes, and a lot of people my age and with my eye shape do stay away from shimmers, but a little bit on the lid, a little bit of sparkle, I think is just so pretty and so flattering, and the shimmers of today are not what they used to be. Most shimmer formulas these days can actually be quite smoothing to the lids. They contain light reflecting particles that deflect the light away from any crepiness on the lid. So in my humble opinion, a palette like this that has 3 mattes and then 1 little pop of shimmer is ideal, even for those of you that may be 50 plus like me. And another reason why I chose this color story versus the other ones I have is because I really like these burgundy shades, but as many of you know, I often have an allergic reaction to red dye and eyeshadows. So anything that's like too purpley or burgundy red that just has a reddish undertone to it can often irritate my eyes. But once in a while, I find some that don't bother me, like the mulberry shade in the Soft Glam 2 doesn't really bother me, has never bothered me. And then the rosier, more burgundy shades in this palette don't bother me at all either. And I really like this color story. I don't know why I'm going like this because this is not the palette I have on except for this shimmer shade like I mentioned. But these types of shades are beautiful on really all eye colors, but especially blue or green eyes. And something else I really like about this particular palette and this formula is that while they are also very buttery and soft, they are pigmented, but they're not too pigmented. I say this often when I talk about blushes, that for many people, it's often better if the product isn't so pigmented because it's so much easier to add product than to try to mute that product, to try to buff it out so it's not so harsh. So you can blend out those harsh lines, be it on the eyes or on the cheeks. And I know some people feel like, well, if it's more pigmented, I don't have to use as much, therefore making it more cost effective. And that does definitely make sense. And everybody is entitled to their opinions and preferences from a makeup artist perspective. As someone who has spent years and years teaching others, I truly believe that starting off more sheer and building up is the better way to go. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that sheer eyeshadows should be what you look for because we definitely want some pigment with our shadows. Nobody wants to be spending this kind of money on an eyeshadow palette for no pigment. So let's just say a middle ground is ideal. And within some eyeshadow palettes, you will often find some shades that are more pigmented than others, like in my next mini palette favorite. This is palette number 4. This is from Urban Decay. It is the Naked palette in Half Baked. Once again, this is one of 4 colorways you can purchase this palette in. I am someone who enjoys my warm neutrals, although I did show you a cool tone palette, and I have another cool tone palette. Well, it sort of leans cool in this video, so hopefully there's something for everybody. I consider myself to have a neutral skin tone, meaning that I can wear both warm tones and cool tones equally well, or maybe I should say I feel both flatter my skin tone. And remember how earlier I said that 6 eyeshadows was, in my opinion, the ideal amount to have in a palette because it sort of lays out the looks for you, meaning you don't do as much questioning of what goes where. I will say that the shimmers are not crazy pigmented, so if you're just looking for a light shimmer, this is the kind of palette that I would recommend because it's not like in-your-face shimmer or sparkle, which I know a lot of people prefer. No matter how many times I might give you the okay to wear shimmer over 40 or 50, I know some of you just won't do it, or you want to try to find a shimmer that's a little bit more subtle than some of them that you see me use and maybe other beauty YouTubers. So because I do prefer eyeshadows that are a little bit more shimmery, I feel like where this palette really shines is with the pigmentation of the mattes. And then of course, love the size, love the fact that it has a mirror, cute packaging overall, 2 thumbs up. I just noticed I have eyeshadow like all over everything, so I'm gonna get up and clean myself off and come back and finish this video. Okay, I have cleaned up my mess, we are all good. But I do feel like this video is going a little sideways because I completely forgot to tell you why I like this Too Faced palette so much. Even though, again, I did talk about it in a very recent video, I just want to say that while this is not like the most high quality, mind-blowing eyeshadow palette I've ever tried, but between the color story, the pigmentation, the ease of blending, the fact that it is so travel friendly, I think this color story will be beautiful on a lot of different skin tones and eye colors. The compactness of the palette, the fact that it has a mirror, those are all reasons why I have included it in my top 7. So the combination of mattes and shimmers Pigmentation, blendability, those are all common things across the board when I'm talking about these eyeshadow palettes. I know sometimes these videos can be a little bit redundant. It's almost like when I do the best concealers, my top concealers videos. I feel like I'm saying the same thing about each one because we all have a criteria that we look for when rating a specific type of product. Blendability, pigmentation, color story, packaging, all of those things go into me giving them a top rating and making my list. The next palette is one that I actually did talk about the last time I did this video, which was more than 2 years ago. And I went and looked back at that video just out of curiosity to see which palettes I chose. And there actually were several that I would recommend again today. However, they appear to have been discontinued or limited edition. So that's kind of a bummer. But I do think I have some excellent replacements here. So the repeat palette is the Charlotte Darling eyeshadow palette from Charlotte Tilbury. I am a huge Charlotte Tilbury makeup lover. I have a very large collection of her products. Do I think everything is great in her line? No. Do I think some of it is not worth the money? Of course. But truthfully, I think that way about every brand. They're all going to have their hits and misses. This has been a hit for me for years. I actually prefer this one to both her Pillow Talk eyeshadow quad and her Exaggerize quad. Now what's missing from here that those quads have is the pop shade. In all of Charlotte Tilbury's eyeshadow quads, the bottom left corner, I think, is always the shadow she labels as the pop. She recommends you use your finger, kind of really get in there and pick up the pigment and then place it on the center of the lid so your eyes pop. So you don't have that here, but you do have a nice mixture of those two very, very popular eyeshadow palettes. Now, if you've been watching this video and perhaps taking notes or writing down my recommendations, now that I look at these two side by side, they're very similar. They both have that dark brown, that kind of mid-toned, plummy brown. But then again, maybe they're not that similar. Oh, this is tough because I know people are going to ask me, of the two, which one should I get? And I suppose my answer would be, what would my answer be? I don't know, I love them both. I honestly can't decide. I guess this might be the better value because you do get more shades. And actually, let me compare the pigmentation here. I'm swatching the brown, the darkest brown, and then the darkest brown from this palette. They're very similar, but the YSL brown is a little less, very, very slightly less plummy than the brown in the Charlotte Darling. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Risa, you've shown us just a bunch of neutral palettes. Do you have any fun palettes, any fun mini palettes with color? No. No, I don't. And I am very sorry if you came here looking for that. I do have one palette that has a beautiful purple in it though, and it is in this absolutely adorable little Viseart Petite Pro #1. This is so tiny, you could actually keep this in your evening bag. I don't know why you would want to. Hopefully your eyeshadow will stay on all night long that you don't have to touch up, but it would be great for your desk at an office or definitely for travel. It even has a cute little mirror inside. You have 8 eyeshadows and they are all super high quality. And as I was saying, it does have this absolutely stunning purple. Look at how beautiful that is. There's a beautiful gold in here. And you don't even need to wet your brush to get a good amount of pigmentation from these shimmers. Although I do always recommend, if you are working with a shimmer shadow and you're not kind of getting the oomph that you are looking for, you can do one of two things. One, use your finger. If you take your finger and you really, really press into a shimmer and then pat it on the lid, you're going to get a really good amount of pigmentation, more so than if you used an eyeshadow brush. And then the other option you always have is to dampen your brush before going into the eyeshadow. And I've also seen many makeup artists apply the eyeshadow to the brush first and then spray it and then put it on the eye. I know I say this all the time, but makeup is really so much about experimentation. Great makeup artists only became great because they were open to experimentation, for playing with different colors, for playing with different techniques on different eye shapes, face shapes. And if you know anything about Viseart, you know that it is a brand that a lot of pro makeup artists use. They have so many excellent eyeshadow palettes that are just really, really high quality, really, really practical, but they are kind of pricey. So going with one of these smaller palettes is a great way to test out the brand's formula. Speaking of testing out an expensive brand's formula, my final mini palette is from Natasha Denona. I have almost all of her large palettes, and going back and reiterating what I said towards the beginning of this video, sometimes I look at her larger palettes and I just don't know where to start. Thankfully, Natasha Denona puts out a lot of tutorials, and she does strategically place certain shades in certain areas so that, you know, these 4 in the upper corner can be one look, these 4 in the lower left corner all go together. But she made it even simpler by coming out with these 5-pan palettes. And choosing my favorite 5-pan mini Natasha Denona palette was very, very difficult. But ultimately, I went with the mini Glam. And I have to say that out of all of them that I have, all of the minis that I have from Natasha Denona, they are pretty consistent in their quality, but I have had a couple in the past that I was a little underwhelmed with. This particular mini is really good across the board. All of the shadows are really, really beautiful. And this particular palette has 2 of my favorite one and done shades. This one on the end and then this one in the middle. Something I do want to point out though in regards to this palette is that in my personal opinion, I don't think this is ideal for anyone with medium to dark skin. I just don't see this as being the best choice. And I say that because even on my light skin, the 2 I mentioned are nice one and done shades for me. I have a feeling they would barely show up on medium to dark skin. Now that said, if you are someone with a medium to deep dark skin tone, there are definitely other 5-pan palettes that I think would look stunning on your skin tone. And as I said earlier, these mini palettes are a great way to try Natasha Denona's eyeshadows at a more budget-friendly price. All right, those are my updated top 7 favorite mini eyeshadow palettes. As always, I will have all of the products listed and linked down below in the description box, as well as tagged through YouTube Shopping if they're available through YouTube Shopping. I will also list and link all of the makeup I have on today. If you did enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. If you are not already subscribed to my channel, I hope that you will hit that subscribe button and join the Risa Does Makeup family. I do upload new videos at least twice per week. You can also find more content from me over on Instagram and TikTok. My username is the same on every social media platform. It's Risa Does Makeup. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope to see you in my next video.